Hey everyone, happy Thursday. Hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for choosing to be a part of Eastview Devotionals. And hopefully the first week of the new year has been treating you well. And so what we want to do is talk about praying in the midst of hard times. We're looking at the John 18 passage where Jesus is in the Garden of Gethsemane. The John 18 version doesn't have a lot of details compared to the Luke and Matthew accounts of the Garden of Gethsemane. However, we're going to be reading a verse from Philippians 4 that talks about how we ought to consider praying, especially when it comes to dealing with hard things in our lives. And I talked about this on Monday. I'm piggybacking off that a little bit when I say that 2023 had baggage, and just because it's a new year doesn't mean those problems and that baggage goes away. We still got to deal with it. We bring it with us into 2024. And before we take on new things and come up with words and New Year's resolutions, maybe it's a good idea to deal with the baggage, deal with the problems, deal with the tensions that we had in 2023. So before we jump into that, what I want you to consider first is that when we read this verse from Philippians 4, a lot of times it can sound insensitive, or it can sound it just sounds like it's disregarding a part of our humanness, which is the fact that we all have anxiety and we all have stress about things. So Philippians 4:6-7 says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in prayer and petition with thanksgiving present your requests to God." Do not be anxious about anything. Let's talk about that. So in the John 18 account, what we see more specifically in the Luke and Matthew account of the Garden of Gethsemane is that Jesus was anxious. He was stressed. So then we read what Paul says in Philippians, where he says, "Do not be anxious." Well, it sounds like there's a contradiction there. Paul is saying, don't be anxious, and yet Jesus, the Son of God, the one we model our lives after, he was anxious. So how does that all work together? Well, this interpretation of Philippians 4 is a little bit of my perspective. When Paul tells us do not be anxious, it doesn't mean that we're never going to be anxious again. I don't know if it means that it's wrong to have anxiety or stress, because you're going to feel that. It's going to happen sometimes whether we like it or not. But here's what I do know. When we follow the rest of that verse, present your requests to God through prayer with thanksgiving. When we have a default response of prayer in the midst of hard things in our life, I think we create opportunities to manage our stress otherwise. Because without prayer and without a way to manage and to help our stress and our anxiety is just going to take over our minds and our hearts. And so what Paul is saying is, hey, there's persecution. There's a lot of hard stuff happening for the church of Philippi, for the people of God at that time, and same is true for us now. Don't be anxious. You have every reason to, every right to. You might feel anxious, but one way that we combat the anxiety and the stress is that we give it all to God. Not as a quick fix, but creating a lifestyle and a spiritual discipline and habit of prayer. Prayer, prayer, prayer. When things get hard, we pray. When things are good, we pray. Doesn't mean we pray the anxiety and the stress away. It just means that when we create a dependence, not on ourselves to fix everything, but we create a spiritual dependence through prayer upon the Lord, it's almost as if we create a healthy way of lowering the anxiety and the stress, because we're creating a healthy reliance upon God. I think that's what Paul is trying to get at with Philippians 4. Once again, as we get into this new year, our hope is that maybe you depend upon God a little more this year. Maybe your prayer life increases. Maybe what you pray about and the things that you pray about, the things that you consider are more kingdom-minded, are more of the Lord's Prayer related. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Those kind of prayers. Maybe your prayer life changes, and as a result, your anxiety and your stress lowers. How cool would that be? How cool would that be? Well, I'll leave this with you today. Once again, thank you so much for jumping into Devos, and see you next time.